Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Can we get Weirdness Found Innawoods thread going? I haven't seen one in ages. I don't Innawoods a lot, but I do get some stories out of it. Found an old industrial complex about 4 miles from town, covered in graffiti and trash. Carrying my SKS, I chose to check it out. It was big, several buildings, all covered in graffiti. I came to the third building and found a door that had arrows pointing to it. The graffiti was all about the room. I read some of it, but the one that stuck with me was, "The shadows will consume you." Being a little scared, I got out my flashlight to take a look. The room was graffiti-free, and it was covered in a brownish liquid. In the corner, at the bottom, was a scarecrow holding a hoe. The odd thing is, the steps to get down there were long broken, and it was standing up. So anything creepy, /K/, general Innawoods finds, stories, etc.?
I went to college in Michigan Upper Peninsula, specifically the Keweenaw Peninsula. There is a ton of empty space, abandoned machinery, abandoned mines up in that area from a huge copper mining boom back in the 1800s. Literally cities built for a couple thousand workers just abandoned. First, the cool stuff. Right off the side of the road, M26 I think, just past a small town, is a huge abandoned dredger. It's basically set up like a massive factory boat thing. The boom arm barely touches shore, and you can jump onto it and shimmy your way to the main part of the boat. It's pretty cool and pretty mellow, so when they closed the mines, they buried the main shaft entrances, but they didn't close a lot of the horizontal ventilation shafts, so me and some buddies have gone exploring in them, usually only going a few hundred meters and using mag lights and leaving a rope behind us. Found some cool old mine drill bits, cans of fuel, picks and stuff. There are also a lot of wheelhouses left, and other random outbuildings in places that are fun to climb around, and it's all pretty tame. The woods is where stuff gets a little scary. When I was assigned to ROTC for our field training exercise, we would head out to Ottawa National Forest so we could run around with guns, pop off rounds and arty sims, and not have to worry about scaring anybody. It was my glorious task to pull security on the nearest road to where everyone else was operating, so about 4 miles from our tactical operations center. They dumped me off with a radio, an M9 with 2 mags of tracers, and 2 green parachute flares. It was all to signal something in case of an emergency. So the first night, I dropped my gear and sat under a massive pine tree, just at the edge of the woods, maybe 10 feet from the road. I spent my time laying on my back, staring up at the stars, which were amazing, and listening to the radio chatter of the night patrols moving around. I forgot to mention it's dead quiet there. No bugs, a few deer, and a few wolves running around. It's all some sort of dead pine forest with no grass, just endless moss on the ground, so just barren. I'm actually enjoying myself, just relaxing until about 2 a.m. I heard the vehicle coming and the pops, way before I saw it just because of how quiet it is. I was sort of confused and on edge, so I just sat where I was. Then I saw some light and flashes coming down the road. The truck had its headlights off and was shining spotlights into the woods. As best I could judge, there were guys in the bed popping off rounds also. So like any sane person, I ran my ass about another 100 meters into the woods and got in the prone behind the biggest tree I could find. They drove past, and I heard a round crack off a tree a yard or 2 away. Once they were gone, I stayed put for about a half hour, then went back to the road and just kept on doing what I was doing. The next night, same spot, I hear another car coming down the road. No light this time and no shots, so I stay put. About a half mile down the road from me, the car stops and pulls off to the side. The dashboard still lights up like a Christmas tree through night observation devices, and it was so clear and bright I didn't really even need them to see. Another car, blacked out, comes from the opposite direction and stops next to the first. They stand around for a few minutes, and then a big box gets moved from one to the other, and they go their separate ways still blacked out. I never knew it at the time, but I guess that area is responsible for a lot of the pill drug distribution in the US. I think I caught a glimpse of a shipment or something.
I was backpacking through the Rockies once when I was in Boy Scouts. We had about 10 boys with us, and 2 adults, and I was the crew leader, which basically means that despite me only being 16 at the time, I was in charge of pretty much everything, because our adults were lazy. So after a long day of hiking, we set up camp and got dinner going as fast as we could. Because there were bears and mountain lions in the area, we had to cook away from the camp and hang anything that had any food scent on it up high off the ground. But because we got a late start on cooking, we were only about halfway done cleaning before the sun was about to set. So I had the guys get all the bags except the one for the dishes ready to go up in the trees and had them go to bed while I finished with the dishes. Camp was about 200 yards away, but in the dark, in unfamiliar woods, that's a pretty long distance, and all I had on me was a 3-inch folder. Well, about 30 minutes after the sun was down, everything is clean, and I go to hang up the bags and get them hung up without a problem. After I did that, for some reason, I got disoriented and a little lightheaded. Everyone in camp was already asleep, and there were no lights on, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out which direction they were in. There was no moon, so besides my little mag light, it was pitch black. Then I heard a low growl. I had momentarily crouched down, hoping to find my bearings, and when I heard it, the first thought in my mind was mountain lion. I immediately stood up to make myself as big as possible and pulled out the knife. I scanned around with my flashlight and saw 2 eyes staring back at me in the dark. I had always heard making a lot of noise around mountain lions just pissed them off more than anything, and didn't really ward them off like it did bears. So instead, I grabbed the nearest, sturdiest stick I could find in anticipation of using it as a spear. I had to get back to the safety of camp. Alone, I'm fucked. But if there were others around, I knew it wouldn't bother me. So I quickly found one of my previous boot prints and started shuffling toward the direction of camp, never taking my flashlight off of the eyes following me. The mountain lion followed me, not surprisingly, keeping a distance of about what I guesstimate to be 25 yards between us. I shuffled, following my footprints, and found my camp. At that point, I got in my tent, feeling relatively sure that it wouldn't mess with 12 of us. The freaky part, I woke up the next morning, and there were mountain lion tracks just outside the front of my tent. I stayed up for 2 hours listening to see if that thing came near, and I didn't hear a thing. That thing waited until I was asleep.
Used to explore the woods as a kid, down behind my step-grandma's place. One time I came across what looked like a cement pond. What stuck out about it to me was that it wasn't a pool. All of the edges were perfectly squared concrete. It was mid-fall, and there were dead leaves all over the place. It was cold and wet, and it was sort of like a 2-step pond, where there was a larger pool, and then connected to it. But higher up was a second pool, which was smaller. There were dead leaves all around it, but strangely, none on the concrete whatsoever, and none in the water. Everything around this pond was completely dead, and I just had this really uneasy feeling being around it, seeing as I was alone. At the time, I was carrying one of those expensive .22 pellet guns and a large hunting knife I had. The water was just disturbing to look at, seeing as how murky it was. I couldn't imagine how deep it went. Anyway, I left the area and went back home. Pretty much forgot about it for a year, until I started having nightmares about it. Decided to face my fear and took a break-action shotgun with me into the woods to look for that pond again. I searched every inch of those woods, up and down, high and low, and never found it again. To this day, I still have no explanation for it.
All right then, here's the story of possibly the scariest day of my life. When I was 17, I decided to start growing pot to pay for college, find a partner to help take care of the plants and sell. We rent a grow house and I buy my first gun, an XDSC chambered in .40 Smith & Wesson to protect the grow house. Don't say a word to any possible buyers until I have 1.5 pounds cured and ready to sell. My partner doesn't do shit. I found then negotiated the rent for the grow house, bought the materials needed to grow, and even found several small gangs to sell in bulk to. Even though we're selling by the ounce, the profit margins are pretty low after we cover our overhead and split the remaining cash. I decide to start producing DMT on my own and selling it in bulk at greatly inflated prices because it's impossible to find in Phoenix. I make several $1,000s in a few weeks. Partner gets jealous that I'm not sharing the fruits of my labor with his lazy ass. We fight about it. I tell him that I can run the whole damn operation on my own. A week goes by where I don't see or hear from him. One day, he and some gangbanger bust down the back door to the grow house while I'm making DMT. I have a glass full of lye and water, mostly lye. The Mexican has a high point. Without thinking, I splash the lye on his face, draw my XDSC, and hold my ex-partner at gunpoint for a few minutes while I sort everything out. Shortly after that, I liquidated all my drug-related assets and started living on the level. I've only recently started growing again.
I was walking around in the woods in Arkansas, carrying my AR-15, just looking about. I started to hear gunshots, so I figured hunters, or just a good old-fashioned Innawoods shoot. I walked to the noise, and then I heard the telltale help shots. 3 quick blasts from a shotgun, and I responded. I yelled as I ran to the source, and out popped a father and son. They both were armed. The son had a shotgun on his back, and the father a Remington 700. The son had an M1 Garand in his hands, and the father an AR-15. They were running hard and fast. The son looked at me and turned around and started shooting into the woods. 6 shots and a ping, and he dropped in another end block. He yelled, "Run to me," and I did. I started hearing snorting and growling, and it did not sound like a boar. I started shooting too, and ran with them. They would turn around and spray into the brush, and I did the same. When they stopped, they were white as ghosts. I asked what they saw. They said it was as big as a bear, white, and had teeth the size of a boot. The eyes were red, and when the dad shot it with a .338 Winchester Magnum, it charged. The son got off 2 shots from the Garand in its leg and shoulder, and it didn't go down. So he gave the warning pops and charged away with his dad. I think it was the Alabama white thing to this day, despite it being in Arkansas.
I usually don't go in a woods, but I've got one story. Bear with me, it involves air shit. Be out behind my friend's house playing airsoft out in a woods. Awesome place, lots of cover, flanking positions, hills, etc. Railroad bridge and tracks alongside it sort of forms boundaries. It's about 3-on-3 now. Some of the guys had to leave to go to work. We're in between games, sitting at the center of the area, refilling the magazines and whatnot. POW, pow, dow, blam. I didn't think nothing of it until one of my friends was like, "Holy shit, dude, there's people on the railroad tracks, and they've got guns." Still sort of chill.
What kind? Friend gives me a frantic look. That doesn't matter. They're aiming in our general direction. Sinks in. DEFCON, -1. Shit, 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 shit. We haul ass out of there, ditching a lot of our stuff at the spot we were in. Not even running on the trails. We bust through thick briars, bushes, etc., just trying to get out of there. I'm freaking the shit out when I'm usually the calm one. One of my friends is busting out laughing the entire time, and another was calm, which I wouldn't have expected from him. The other three went in a different direction. We didn't see them until later. I call the friend whose neighborhood we were playing in. Dude, fuck, we're being shot at. Okay, I've been shot at out there too. You just have to be careful. Hang up, wait a little while, and eventually make our way back to get our shit and get out. Hadn't been in those woods since. Looking back on it, I laugh, but damn, I was shaken, seeing that none of us got hit. 1. Were shit awful shots. 3. Not really aiming at us, but in our general direction. Who just goes in a woods walking along railroad tracks and shoots at anything that moves? I remind you that we're really close to a neighborhood.
I have an aunt who pretty much lives in the woods, nothing but trees and one other house around her for about 3 miles in one direction and forever in the other. One evening she is waiting for FedEx and hears a really loud banging at the front door. She opens the main door to yell at the FedEx guy for knocking so loud, but it's a black bear beating the screen door with its front paws. She screams, and it backs off enough for her to close the main door. She's home alone, and while there are guns in the house, she has never shot one and isn't comfortable with them. She starts calling people for help when she hears a knock at her side door. She goes up to the floor above it and looks down in time to see the bear burst through the side door and into her basement. By the time we get there to help her, the bear is long gone, but my old man and her husband call the local game boys, and we hang a new, stronger door. They sent a bunch of guys out hunting that bear, but no one ever found it. About 6 years later, her husband is out at his garage, about 500 feet from the house, and he notices their old station wagon had been broken into. The bear is curled up in the back, having broken the hatchback open. The fucker is dead. Old age and cold killed him, apparently.
I have an in a desert story. Back when I had my Chinese girlfriend, Norinko SKS, I was making a hiking trip of it below and to the east of Rockville, which is near Zion's Canyon. I'd been walking around for a few hours when I came upon the ruins of a brick wall and a log house. It was pretty much in the middle of nowhere with a small path that led away from it. The house was collapsed and the well on the property was long since capped. Moving some of the collapsed rotten timbers, I found some nice old time nails and a couple brass buttons that I gave to my cousin. There was a small headstone out behind the house that was too worn to see the name. It was only about a foot high and white sandstone, which in this region of the country usually means it was a baby that had died. I did not want to dig the grave up, so I took the walking path, and it led me into Rockville proper. I hitched a ride with a group of tourists going to Zion. They were Koreans that had never been to this part of the country. They honestly were fascinated by my SKS. I had unloaded it and let them touch it. The translator asked me what I was doing, and I told her that I had been hiking. They dropped me off in front of a cafe where my friend worked, and I went in with a hiking pack and rifle and all and got some food. Some Dutch tourists took their photo with me having the rifle slung over their shoulder. I never did get an email or address from them. I wish I had that photo.
friend gets off work in an hour and drives me back to my car. It was a great day. And no one freaked out that I was open carrying an SKS in southern Utah. I just talked with my father, and he reminded me of one that I had completely forgotten about from when I was a kid. Late 1980s deer hunt in a canyon in Utah. Tagging along with my father and carrying a .22 long rifle while he has a .30-06. He takes a mule doe and drags it down to the road where there is a stream to start dressing it out before we haul it back to the truck. A kid about 16 or 17 comes riding up on a dirt bike, and we have a nice chat about the deer. He rides further up the trail. We hear a shot before he's out of our sight, and he ditches the bike, then stands there looking at it in shock. Dad tells me to stay with the deer and keep my rifle ready. He goes up to the kid with his rifle and asks him what's going on. Kid starts sobbing and pointing to a hole in the bike. Someone shot the bike while the kid was riding on it. Shot it with a rifle. Let me put it another way. Someone took a shot at a kid on a dirt bike who was completely unarmed. We grabbed the kid and hiked down to the truck with the deer, called the ranger, and he showed up in 20 minutes. Never found the guy who took the shot. Last one. It's October of 2007, and my ex-3rd Infantry roommate Brian wants to go camping above Park City. We get our other roommate Mike to go with us, but Brian takes forever to get his gear together, and we don't leave until an hour before sunset. Finally, we get up to the camp area about an hour after dark and set up. It's pretty close to the timber line, and it's getting cold quickly. I break out a bottle of sangria, and we all sit around the fire snug and drinking wine. I brought with me a .995 carbine and an M38. Hour or so later, we heard this big crunch from the tree line. Brian sits up straight, and I toss him the .995. I bolt around into the M38 and stay by the fire. He starts circling the trees, trying to get a better view on what it is. Hear another big crash, and I walk over to him. We can see something out there in the dark. I fire a shot at the ground with the M38 to scare it off. The thing comes even closer. Brian goes back to Mike, who is drunk as hell, and they both pack the gear back into the car. I keep my eyes on the shadow. Then I hear the scariest thing I have ever heard in my life. It was a bull moose call from about 40 yards. I backed up, and we got the hell out of there as quickly as possible, but the road down was pretty bad, and Brian had to run ahead of us with the .995 directing me where to go. Keep in mind, we are all drunk, and Mike is sitting in the passenger seat saying how cool this is and how much he likes having us as friends. We finally relocate to a campground 2 miles down from the first, and I don't sleep well that night. A raven wakes me up in the early pre-dawn, and I nearly shoot it with the M38. Stayed up the rest of the night and went into town for breakfast. Scary night.
Me and 2 friends were hunting Bigfoot in Washington. We went to the area that was at least 20 miles away from any roads. After hiking for about a day, we made camp and set out some Bigfoot lures to try to attract him. I'm carrying my AK-47. My other friend has a Kel-Tec SU-16. The rich friend who supplied the tent and other supplies had an AR-10 with this kick-ass thermal scope. We took turns using the thermal spotter to try to find Bigfoot, but I was tripping a little too hard to do a good job. Start to sense some sort of presence watching us. Keep telling myself that if anything tries any shit, it's gonna get 30 rounds of 7.62 and 223 and 20 of 3.08. But what if Bigfoot hunts in packs? My friend says that something is on the thermal scope, and we all are aiming in that direction. Guns are shouldered, and my finger is on the trigger. I was waiting for Bigfoot to pop out and get his ass dropped. A stick or something broke and freaked the shit out of me. Either the bourbon, or maybe it was a Bigfoot or bear, but I saw something come over this ledge. I let off 3 shots at it, and then my friend with the SU-16 fired about 5 as well. Rich friend yells to hold fire, and we go to that area to check out what we hit. It's like 1 a.m., and one of my tracer rounds started a minor fire, and we were all freaking out about the Bigfoot. We all said we saw in the little fire that started up. I put out the fire by rolling on it, but there was still something out there. We went back to camp and stayed up the rest of the night, but didn't see any Bigfoot. The next day, though, I shot a fish with my AK and cooked that.
Innawoods looking for pigs with a bro. Got my SKS, bro has his Mossberg. Walking along, not much in the way of pig signs, start to wonder if the trip is gonna be a bust. Spot some brass on the ground, go check it out since it's private property. 5.56 millimeters. See another one not far off. Walk towards it, see another one. And another, and another, and another. Get to about 20, then find a 30-round AR mag. 25-ish cases later, another AR mag. More brass, 2 more AR mags. Trail of brass and mags is about 60 to 75 meters long. There's some blood near the 3rd mag and some big prints, but they're hard to identify. No idea what happened here. Can't have been more than a day or so old, as there had been rain earlier in the week, and AR mags are worth moonbeams down these ways, so you wouldn't just leave them in the forest. Grabbed the mags and followed the footprints, but we lost them when they went up a bank covered in dead gorse, and you'd have to be highly motivated to run through dead gorse bushes. Got good money for the mags though, so that was cool.
Live in rural Greece. House outside small village. Nothing big nearby. Hear weird animal cries and breaking one night. Take AKM and investigate. Find brown bear and cubs about 1 kilometer from house under cliff face being attacked by pack of wolves. Stop about 30 meters away. Not really sure what to do. Start taking shots at the wolves. 2 die and the rest run. Unsure of mother bear's condition and intentions, take several shots to be safe. Walk up to examine the scene. Mother was already gravely wounded before I shot her. 1 dead cub is nearby. Find live and unharmed cub snuggled up against the cliff face. Take him home and feed him. Name him Nikos and let him sleep in my garage. I really like bears and feel bad about their condition in Greece. There aren't a lot left thanks to poachers.
But I was around 19, went backpacking at Black Butte with closest friend. We started at Camp Sherman and started hiking up the road. We wanted to get really far, so we started easy. Only weapons are a nugget and a couple clips and a couple Gerber's blades. We see this sign that says horse camp, and I remember being told it's usually really crowded, but easy to get deep into the woods from there, so we head on our way there. It takes about 4 hours because of huge hills and annoying inclines. It's getting to twilight when we get there. There's a tiny little creek near the entrance. It's another huge hill, can't see up it. We get some extra water and continue on our way up the hill. Keep in mind, it's usually a super crowded area. When we get there, there is 1 trailer, it's burned, 2 horse skeletons, the entire forest there is torched almost completely, and a fucking human femur that was gnawed badly. We start flipping shit at that when we see 2 fucking cougars in the distance. My friend starts wigging out and stumbles down the hill. I'm essentially alone with a couple of knives and a possible cougar encounter on my hands when out of nowhere, the door of the trailer comes off its hinges and something starts wailing from inside. I ran down that hill and picked my friend up. He had broken both arms when he got to the bottom. It starts raining. Soon enough, there's an intense thunderstorm, like lightning striking 40 feet away. I'm jogging down a small gravel road with a guy moaning in my arms, when almost everywhere it seems the bushes are rustling as if something is waiting in them. Keep jogging and get back to Camp Sherman whining like a little bitch, pretty much pissing my pants at what had all happened. We went back this year. The trailer is still there, but it looks fixed up. The forest is almost back, and all the bones are gone. I still don't know what the fuck was up with that camp.
High school. Have kind of nutty friend. We both love guns. One day invites me out shooting. We drive to a fairly known spot. M1 Garand, SKS, AKM, Glock, 357, 1022. The works pretty much. Crack a few beers. Enjoy the sun and gun. Eventually hear this fucking pickup truck full of jackass rednecks. Uncommon up here in the north. At this point we're just thinking, what in the fuck? Pickup is raised. They're all in flannel and cowboy hats and heading straight towards us. Buddy tosses me the Garand and a clip, grabs the SKS. Uncle puts a mag in the Glock. This gonna be good. GIF. Rednecks jump out of their truck. Who the fuck you think you all are? Who the fuck do you think you are? You might want to just be getting out of here. I'm still fumbling with the Garand clip. Buddy's uncle is giving them all hell, and rightfully so. This is public land. We're out here enjoying ourselves. If you want us to leave, you're gonna have to wait till you're done. More redneck gibberish threatens to kick our asses. Hasn't made the connection between rifles, ammo, and people. Finally get clip in Garand. Bolt sticks in the rear. God damn it, fuck it, I'm done with these assholes. Buddy's uncle looks out of ideas. Rednecks look pissed. Buddy ready to raise SKS. How about this? You get in the truck and leave right the fuck now, and this won't get ugly. Hear that, boys? They want yes to leave, and they're gonna make it ugly. Tap, Garand, bolt. Loud as all fuck. They freeze up, finally realize we aren't fucking around. Oh yeah, and what you gonna do with that? See rock about 50 yards out. Shoot it. Something along the lines of what I just did to that rock. They realize they have 3 pissed-off drunks with guns pointing at them. Decide to hop back in the raised POS truck. Speed off. They kick up dust and flip us off as they run. Finish off our ammo. Pack up. Never go to that spot again. And I will never go Innawoods unarmed. Too many fucking weirdos.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.